Anyways.
You should.
What a surprise.
They don't do that in the second one.
Okay. Well, anyway, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Smudcast number 275. Is all anime postmodern? What a question for the ages, folks. First off, we have to define what postmodern means, and it's quite simply in the word. It's after modern. It's some sort of thing which is considered modern, and then there's something that comes after that. So it's either rejection of the modern or something newer, and that could be anything. Now, there's certain definitions of postmodern art, and then that's not to say there's other things like Post-Modernism, which is a whole other movement, which I'm not even going to get into because I think it's a waste of time. So that's up to...
Yeah, that's probably the one we're dealing with here.
Probably.
Political stuff, and not the postmodern art, and not the postmodern architecture, which is also a bit different from postmodern art. Yeah.
It's a fun topic to try and cover. Not to say we want to cover it, but this is just the video that we happen to be doing right now. So anyway,
I love the starting frame here. That is I don't know which anime this is, but look at these soulless faces.
And all of them have the same mouth animation.
Yeah, they're 3D.
Yeah.
These look 3D. Them. Yeah, definitely
3D. Yeah.
Look at them.
The cell shade outline. The eyes are all the same, roughly the same shape. The eyebrows are roughly the same shape.
The anime soy boy version.
Just look at them.
I don't want
as
to
they look back at you or past you in this case.
This is by a YouTuber called Zeria. I don't know if this is a guy or a girl. This was done 2 years ago in June.
Do you want to know who this person is? Like, you can have like a guess for like 5 seconds.
I have no idea.
If you have any good one. Okay, it's a pedantic romantic's boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever.
Pedantic romantic's boyfriend, what?
What?
Those two are in a relation. So
wait. So this YouTube maker is in a relationship with...
Yes.
Oh God.
Okay. I mean, he hasn't made a video. Let me just check.
Are they all communists?
This is the latest video he's made. This was 10 months ago. And apparently I left a comment on it 9 months ago because he didn't bother to read his script, and he said that Astro Boy came out in 1863. So,
yes.
What?
It's
a bit before that?
It's these stupid, it's like an essay the guy never read. He wrote it and went, first draft, no problem, let's make a video. And he did that. Didn't even use his brain to understand the words coming out of his own mind.
You assume that he wrote it.
You would think.
I hear faint, frustrated noises from Hemingway's grave.
Oh, God.
Fuck Astro Boy. I'm going to write better novels than that.
Well. It's just... I mean, I watched this. I think someone voted on this last year, and I went, no way in hell. So there's a tolerance I have for blind stupidity, and yesterday was just stupidity. Like yesterday was like, okay, this guy's a moron. You can forgive that. But today is like, okay, this guy actually thought this through and he read some books. He listened to some philosophers of postmodernist thought, and you go,
oh God, no.
Oh, really?
Yesterday or this one?
No, yesterday was just an idiot. Let's be honest. That guy didn't have much going for him. But we can forgive that. We can forgive people who aren't very smart. That's fine. You say something dumb, you're an idiot. Totally understandable. When you lie to people, when you misconstrue things, when you confuse people with words and word salads, and Movie Bob is a great example because he's so high up in the clouds, he doesn't know the difference. He can't understand any other way of thinking. This guy is like a proto. He's like, I'm about to become Movie Bob, or something like that.
He wants to be a fascist?
No. I don't know what he wants to be. He sounds
he wants to destroy Poland.
I don't
if he
know.
sounds like movie Bob, then he sounds like a fascist.
Well,
movie Bob says it's indistinguishable from Nazis.
No one sounds like movie Bob.
While he claims to be for communism.
You can't speak and have that tonal voice and talk the way movie Bob does. I don't think I've never heard anyone talk like that. So
I mean the inflection, okay.
Oh, well.
All right.
I don't know. This okay. So anyway, we're gonna try watching. I'm gonna try. If you guys want to keep watching it, we'll do it. But I'm just like, this is worthless. This is a waste of your time. You're better served off running around your house, drinking some water, sitting down in a chair and staring at the wall would be better. Like, there's so many things you could be doing.
So before we start with this, my experience with people who ascribe to postmodern philosophy, or I call it pseudo-philosophy, it is not a real philosophy. It is solely a tool to deconstruct, or rather destroy, everything it comes into contact with, and it is only used by Marxists, by communists, to destroy everything else. They never use it against communism and Marxism itself, for that it can destroy just as much, which shows, in my eyes, that it is solely a weapon to get rid of everything else, so that only the ideology is left, and everyone else it is supposed to drive insane. That's what the whole subjectivity movement is about.
So, just in case you guys don't know, today was Karl Marx's birthday, I think. So a lot of people. Yeah. So lots of people on Twitter. I just saw it for an hour and I was just like, wow, a lot of rando people just saying, happy birthday, Marx. Thank you for X, Y, Z. And I'm like, okay. I mean,
thank you for 200 million dead.
I mean, he didn't cause that, but he's the guy who originated the ideas of theoretical ideas, rather, of how to organize society. And we tried those. And they didn't work.
Kind of led to 200 million dead.
Yeah. So this is like, okay, say I believe in Plato's Republic, right? He has a system for organizing society, and we tried Plato's Republic throughout history, and every time we tried it, the entire city burns down. And there's people on Twitter going, "Oh, I love Plato. Plato had the great idea for organizing society. What a great guy." It's like, no.
Yeah, if I do it, the city won't burn down. So trust me on. Oh, why is it burning?
Yeah. So
that's not my fault.
City not burning, comrade. We're doing reconstruction.
It wasn't the real Plato's Republic.
Yeah, it hasn't been tried before. It's not modernized. It's not made available for the technology we have today. Plato wasn't aware of information and information technology and computers and soda pop and a bunch of other modern conveniences.
But he was totally right about everything, and it still applies to even to the world after the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, I'm sure Marx had some great insight into the Hegelian dialectic and all the understanding of argumentation. I'm sure he was a smart fellow. But you know what? His theories were bad. Okay?
Hegel bad.
They were bad in application, and that's all you need to know. People died.
We can argue about that, but I will say Hegel bad.
Yeah, Hegel bad. I rather like Hegel, but okay.
Yeah, but he's essentially a historical determinist. He's utterly religious, and then he comes up with the inevitable march of history that sounds exactly. So he tries to get religion out of the equation, but at the same time, he just the way he describes the inevitable march of history is, it sounds indistinguishable from God's plan. And that means everything has to be done because everything progresses forward. We have to do it, and the whole later Marxist stuff, socialist communist stuff, is an application of that. It's and that is where we find these other quasi-religious elements in all of it.
Yeah, this is stuff that when I was going to school and doing philosophy, we just sort of laughed at it. We just said, this is, people actually considered studying this and wrote books about this and had courses on this. And you could take a course in postmodern philosophy. It's like an elective or a single course, but it's not a necessary part of your curriculum. and you can just look at it and go, okay, yeah, a bunch of people thought crazy shit. Like, all right, fine. And then you just move on.
Virgin postmodernist versus the Chad Hume.
The Chad Hume's like, no.
I have one philosophy teacher, and often in his class there was at least one person who always wanted to bring up postmodernism, and every time they tried, he was like, "No, shut up. It's not relevant. Go away."
From what I know from friends in Germany who studied philosophy or tried to, and some of them just gave up because it was unbearable, is that you have 2 allowed schools of thought that you have to ascribe, otherwise you will not get a degree. And that is, you either have to be a postmodernist or a materialist.
Wow.
Anything else, you will not get good grades, because you will be disagreeing with your professor, and your professor will just mark you out for disagreeing with him.
Oh my God.
And that is what they call nowadays philosophy. To me, that sounds like sophistry.
That sounds scary, because usually when I joined a philosophy club, and we were arguing the entire time. We would always argue, and this is with TAs.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, and we were just having fun and just like looking at things, and
yeah, that's how it was in my philosophy courses as well.
What it's supposed to do.
Yeah, there was no answers. We were just sitting there going, "Well, I don't know, but that's what I think." And you're like, "Okay, that's it. We can't argue any further because we don't have any more knowledge. There's nothing to say." Yeah. So we would prepare, but it's like we can only go so far. But that's the great thing. You figure ideas out by arguing them and seeing which ones float. And it's just all theoretical stuff. And I think it's necessary for learning and post-secondary education, rather. Any university level education, you should be arguing every week with someone about something. Or else it's just knowledge. You can just read a book and memorize it and do an exam, and that's that. So
yeah, but that's just school. Reading a book and memorizing, that's just school. That's not university.
Yeah, well. Times have changed.
That's university as well.
It is university in practice nowadays, yes, but that is not what university should be.
Right.
It has been for 20 years now.
I mean,
I know. It's been schoolified. We've been
to some extent. To some extent, it is unavoidable in some parts because you need to learn the basics.
Sure, of course. But when it's only that, then it's not a university. Then it is just a glorified school.
Like the some of my coworkers who do study, and then when I talk to them a bit, and they tell me, "Nah, you're not allowed to question the orthodoxy."
Yeah.
It's not university.
Even like I was in STEM though, like not philosophy, but like a lot of us like noticed that like the professor was like clearly using like an outdated like design pattern that was like even outdated in the 80s, and we told him that like, well, how about we change this thing, like this program? And like he was like, well, I don't care, and like you should like finish the thing, but like you can only use my framework to work with this. And I was like, oh. So either like you memorized all that C code that like he wrote like 30 years ago, or you didn't pass the class at all.
Oh God!
Wow. Jeez.
Well, at least it wasn't COBOL.
At least it wasn't Fortran, or COBOL I can do, but Fortran is like, oh my God.
Which I did like assembly language as well.
Really?
That was crazy. I had to build my own compiler, and like at least like the professor there was at least tolerant, and like he allowed us to like use a documentation website to like write down and don't have to memorize the thing. But like, oh God.
So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, assembly language, as far as I know, is the lowest level language I can think of.
Well, the one that like humans can write, yes.
Yeah.
So it's one level above machine code.
Yeah.
Right. And COBOL is a specific kind of language on specific kind of hardware, like the AS400s, and they're just very old, like 70s level of programming. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to make some money, learn COBOL, because nobody does it anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Banks are looking for, especially banks, are looking for programmers who are well versed in COBOL and similar dead languages, if you will. Because all the most important key stuff is still running on that, and nobody's allowed to touch it because it might just fall apart completely.
Believe it or not,
and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, believe it or
Then we're
not,
all dead.
McDonald's, the entire network of when you buy a hamburger runs off COBOL and AS400 machines.
Fuck me, man.
Do they still have
Even
servers with
McDonald's.
pipes somewhere?
Maybe they've upgraded their interface, like for when you go buy an automated burger at the teller, like you do it yourself. Maybe they've upgraded the interface, but the actual backend is all AS400s, IBM machines from the 70s and 80s.
Awesome.
Jesus Christ.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, you can never take a break to upgrade the system
the
because
thing is, those things
that's
are
too much of a
impenetrable.
risk.
Like they're you can't hack those things. Like they're designed so that you cannot break into them. So McDonald's doesn't give a crap. It's like, yeah, we've had them for 40 years or whatever. They're perfect. It's like, okay.
never change the running system.
Anyway, let's get with the video until we get bored and stop and hurt ourselves. Here's
I have an emergency topic for 5 minutes after.
all right. Let's that might happen. Here's Mike Testa. Sorry, last I checked, Astro Boy wasn't steampunk. Okay. Yeah, well.
Look at these soulless faces.
Anyway, 11-minute video, folks. I will pull the plug very quickly if my tolerance drops, which it's very high level. Bullshit is the one thing I can't tolerate is just if it's constant streams of bullshit. I just like, okay.
Do we have a backup video?
I will find one. Don't worry.
I trust.
Okay, let's go.
All anime is
No, it's not
postmodern.
playing. God damn.
Sure.
Okay, so already
Wrong. No.
we have.
Okay,
Why?
that is your hypothesis. I say no. Please.
Right. The title of the
Please
video
justify.
is all anime postmodern. He's asking a question. And-
All right, you already answered it. Video over.
And he
No
just
info.
said, it is.
Oh, so that was what he said.
Yeah.
Watch together doesn't want to work for me sometimes.
Oh, yeah?
Do you have a
Yeah.
Tried
VPN?
another browser?
Oh, wait. Maybe I should. Yeah, that's a good idea, Mark. That's a very good
Because
idea.
yesterday I had it on, like NordVPN, and it kept dropping me out.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Alrighty. Let's go. Where am I? There we go.
Series that challenge the division between artist and creation and between truth and reality are called postmodern all the time. But oftentimes that analysis derives from an utter lack of understanding about what postmodernity and postmodernism mean, and obscure the postmodernism hiding just beneath the surface of every series you watch, providing the beams on which the house known as anime ultimately rests. Don't get me wrong though, these terms have been used as vague descriptions rather than as rigorous definitions since their inception, so their abuse by underread anime critics is no new event. Most serious scholars of postmodernism define it as a cultural mode, rather than a style
Oh
of
god,
art.
no.
In simple terms, it's the form in which culture and life express themselves under what we might call a general postmodern condition. Jean-Francois Lyotard, who's best known for setting out a definition of postmodernity, defines it as the vaguely post-war period we currently live in, characterized first and foremost by that oh-so-famous loss of faith in what
I already disagree because, especially in Germany, we describe the post-war period, die Nachkriegszeit, as a specific period in time, not everything after the war, but just specifically the 50s and in part 60s.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so he's already talking junk. Hello, Yokai.
Yeah, don't worry, everybody. I'm here.
Hey.
Don't worry. I know
Hey,
you were
the
worried
demon
about it.
joined us.
All right, let's
Save us, Yokai!
And
Just
this
got
is
home from work early day today, so
oh, that's
this
good.
is apparently an interview from German TV.
Yay.
DYF is a I think it's a German public television broadcaster.
is all anime postmodern? Huh.
Oh yeah, it's also
Tell me how Lucky
it's
Star is
Ostdeutscher Rundfunk.
postmodern.
Yeah, that's East German TV broadcast.
Okay. How you doing?
Oh,
How you doing, everybody?
we're great.
How about Excel Saga? Is that postmodern?
How's the chat doing? Okay.
Ooh,
That's a good question. I don't know.
that is you. I think you could That is one of the more likely things where you could make the argument, because it does things that you could describe as deconstruction of genre.
Yeah.
However, it does that with the intent of being comedy.
Yeah.
The point of Excel Saga, and that is, please watch Excel Saga. It's one of the greatest comedies out there.
Oh no!
Yes,
Please.
Pedro. And the great will of the grand universe, and it's great characters. What Excel Saga does is that the whole point of the show is that the show doesn't know what it wants to be, and every episode it tries out to be a different genre, and thereby becomes a complete joke, a persiflage, if you will, of that genre. And you could describe that as postmodern in that sense. But it does not do this in order to destroy genre. This is where and this is the important part of postmodernism, that it doesn't contain. It doesn't destroy anything. It just makes fun of things. But in order to make fun of these things properly, you first have to understand them. And I have gone to the point that I say, to fully understand a thing by German word would be durchdringen. Do you know what a good word for that would be in English, philosopher?
You mean to fully comprehend? I would say something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Would be to fully comprehend something doesn't mean that you need to deconstruct it, because because in order, if you can fully comprehend it, you can put the thing together again and reconstruct it into something else. Postmodernism does not reconstruct anything at all. It just destroys. You could say that Excel Saga does reconstruct things because it understands every the genres it tackles or incorporates. This is how I would see it. And a subversion of a genre by putting a twist on it, like Puella Madoka Magica does, is I would also say that is not postmodern. That is rather a continuation of the exploration of a trope or a genre. It's rather an evolution, not a destruction.
Here is Alex Halo. Anime is otaku culture. We make what we want. I think the sheer amount of people making media, to say that the entire media itself, or the medium of anime, is a style, is already wrong. You could have a Japanese animator do his own style. It would still be called anime and would look totally different. It would feel totally different. He could do whatever he would want. And by virtue of being published by some sort of animation studio, and they let this guy through, is like, that's anime. That would be fine.
A Pantheon with Garterbelt is a good example of that. Sorry, I thought you were done. No. Should I continue?
I'm going to change the subject. I think you should go first.
Okay. Pantheon Stocking with Garterbelt is a good example of what you just said. It's a Gainax anime, and it is a crazy amalgamation of anime with, and it changes between the visual styles as well, between high class anime and Invader Zim style animation, coupled with even Tartakovsky style animation and style, and interjected with paper mash Godzilla explosions of shit. It is a complete mess, and it is wonderful. And yeah, that's pretty much what you're saying, and it was conceived as that. Like they got together drinking and thought, hey, this would be, well, why don't we cross over? We're fans of Zim, and let's make something like that.
All right,
It's
let's
one
keep
of the
going.
creative works
Let's keep
of
going here.
Gainax that is actually good.
Alex Halo, otakus make parodies and joke about stuff they like. There's parody in all sorts of media. So whether it's indicative of a certain trope or a pattern, like you see, oh, we're going to make a joke about this trope, like the girl who's always falling in love with the main character in the school romance novel or whatever. It's like, yeah, you see that all throughout the ages, not just Japanese anime or not just one medium. So people make fun of things all the time. It's how much and how big is the joke, how long does it go on for, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, there's a key difference here with normal and good parodies, and with what postmodernists or Marxists make in regards to parodies.
It's one thing to do.
Which would be
that
would be Thundercats Raw. That's essentially a parody.
Yeah, but if you're doing an analysis
But it's unbearable.
for the sake of it, like an essay, that's fine. You're doing some academic paper and you're interpreting something through a certain lens, and you happen to use postmodernism. That's fine, great, cool. Whatever your philosophy teacher wants you to do, your media teacher wants you to do, great, cool. But if you're making stuff, if you're gonna like make the next Excel saga or I don't know, the ending to Evangelion, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this crazy interpretive experimental thing where everyone just pats you on the back for being awesome. You really have to know what you're doing, or else you're going to piss off a lot of people. And we can understand why Eva was the way it was because of budget constraints and scheduling and all these other problems with health and people trying to get the film out the door, and then the remakes and then the redos and then all these other additional videos that come out decades later. So we get that business side of things. But to do it for the sake of... Yeah?
I have a question, actually. This is a genuine question. And I think it's one worth asking. Isn't postmodern art... Like, this just sounds to me like I'm actually looking up the terms and everything. And what we see as contemporary art, what we see as modern art, and what we see as postmodern art, those sound like just the names of eras that challenge the previous eras.
Yes,
So,
yes, but that is
saying
art
that
and
all
architecture.
anime is postmodern, it's like, no, but you can say the same thing about any form of artistry, and I almost wonder if he's misusing the term.
Oh, yes.
Or maybe I'm misusing the term.
It's because he's not talking about art or architecture in that sense, but he's talking about the postmodern philosophy as it calls itself.
Right.
So like the political movement?
It's a completely different thing that happens to take on the same name.
If we were to talk about postmodern art within the context of anime, there's really nothing to say. We'd have to look at anime and then postmodern anime, not like cubism from 100 years ago.
So like anime that challenges anime that came before it?
Yes, exactly. You can't just do like
But then by definition it can't all be postmodern because not all anime challenged the anime before it.
Yep.
It's just a person who doesn't know anything about the terms they're using, and they're just using it to apply them to anime.
All he knows is the ideological definition within.
Well, yeah, but also even with what you just said about the postmodern period was kind of wrong, and so it's already off to a bad start.
Like we can talk about anime that has postmodern art in it, like what's that?
Yeah.
Like Elfenlied. Elfenlied has that. What's that? Gustav. What's his face?
I really like Elfenlied.
Yeah, it's the you see they took the actual painting he did and they stuck it into the title sequence of Elfenlied.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's Gustav, whatever his name is. Right?
Well,
So
yeah,
it's like,
isn't the anime named after a German poem from like a long time ago?
I don't know the nature of the poem.
It means Elven song, but I do not remember the poem. I can look it up if you want.
Right.
The manga is incredibly sad.
If I recall, the poem was actually a comedy, which is ironic given how fucked up Elfenlied is.
Oh, right. But the actual artwork.
Have you read the manga?
Like they superimpose. Like this is to me this is postmodernism, because what they're doing is they're taking the actual art.
It's good.
And you see this in postmodern art, where it's pop art, where they take actual art and they change the luminosity or the color variance, and they superimpose something else on top. So that's what they actually did with Lucy, where she's hugging this creature, or whatever the amalgamation of Gustav's art was, and you see her in the foreground, and she's hugging this person or this thing. So it's like, oh, I get that. That's a style, but that's just one. That's a title sequence. That's not the actual show. That's just someone being creative with the opening. So you watch the show, it's like, ooh, that's cool. So you can say that is postmodern because there's actual reference to postmodern art, but you can't say the anime itself. Like the anime itself.
It seems like he's making the claim. I haven't seen the video yet, but just the title of the video, I'm gonna sort of play around with. It's not like the only way it would make sense is if he making the claim that the plot line of every anime challenges society. Is that the claim he's making?
He has not even defined his term. He just says it is,
okay.
And he ran with it, and we're like, oh, okay.
But you understand why I'm asking that question, right?
Well, any sensible person who listens to these people goes, what are they talking about? And how did we get from A to Z so in like 2 seconds? Like
how can you say an entire medium of art automatically challenges all of society's hierarchical tendencies? It's crazy.
It is a bold claim, to put it lightly. So yeah. Anyway, let's try and continue, because I feel a bit better about it now that I'm with you guys, because by myself I was just getting furious. So
can I add like a quick trivia? I'll be real quick. Apparently, like the first anime that we saw, the awful 3D one, it's the Karl Marx Chinese animation.
What?
Yeah,
it's a
Chinese animation about the life of Karl Marx.
Really?
Yes, because I know it's like the Billy, and like Space Junk pointed out that like, isn't it that one? And it is.
It's called The Leader. Oh my god.
Yes.
I did not know this existed. Oh my god.
Can you link it?
Everything exists.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia article. I don't know if you guys want to see this, but
we should like recommend this to LitDev so you can watch like some quality shit. Probably need something else after JoJo.
Almost reminds me of the Onshin Rikyo anime.
What? It's called Der Führer?
Yes, it is.
Der Führer.
2019.
If you ever wondered, the leader translates into German as der Führer.
Der Führer.
So all communists call the heads of state Führer. Effective.
Fantastic.
Which should make you think whether there's really that much of a difference between Nazis and communists.
Oh no.
But there's also the manga about Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. So.
This is true.
Anyway. I read it. So.
God.
Anyway, there's a video.
Let's get back
somewhere.
to the video. Here's Mike Testa. Is it wrong to laugh socialists out of credibility? You don't have to laugh them out. You just have to listen to them. And
they don't start with credibility.
Yeah, but do laugh about them.
If they try to have an economic theory, it starts with, well, if we just sort of work for free, then you start laughing at them. Yes, you can do that too.
I mean, economic theory without money.
You can either tackle it. There's really two methods that I like to follow. There's the Tucker Carlson method, where you just kind of laugh them out of the office, and then there's Jordan Peterson method, where he's like, he takes everything they say seriously and then explains why it's wrong.
Yeah. And every time you can do this with the simple point of but the employer is stealing your work. No, you can either laugh at that or just explain that no, the employer is compensating me for the help I offer him to achieve what he wants to do.
Right.
That would be a healthy work relationship.
Anyway, okay, let's keep going.
What he calls grand narratives. Also called meta-narratives, grand narratives are teleological
Oh yeah, the Jesus.
Unnecessary amounts of big words.
Teleological? Yeah, I know. He's really... I don't think he actually read the teleological argument on the existence of God from Descartes, where it came from, let alone pronounce it right. So, anyway.
Meaning stories wherein history itself, and perhaps even nature, trend inexorably towards one purposeful cause, and would always have done so since their very conception. The inevitable return of Christ or establishment of communism are classic examples of grand narratives. Though proponents of both, myself included, have often argued against that charge. Prior to World War II, the most prominent grand narrative was that of modernization. It came in many forms: liberal, communist, fascist, nationalist, but unless you were the heir to a sizable aristocratic fortune, you probably believed
He's just saying random words.
What is he talking about?
He's just
narrative?
He keeps changing the topic.
Grand narratives. He's just talking about grand narratives now.
Okay, I mean...
Sure.
Modern grand narratives, I guess. I mean, that's fine.
Which used modern means for some of the most horrific ends imaginable, ended that universal hope. And within the coming decades, all of these grand narratives wherein history was trending to some perfect built-in endpoint came crashing down. At least, that's how the story of postmodernism goes, as told by Lyotard. Without a doubt, it can be argued. Didn't neoliberalism...
What the hell are we what is this now? We went from anime about war...
Okay, so grand narrative refers to stories that are told about certain groups of people. I don't think every anime is that, if that's what he's saying. And even if it was that, let's give it to him, right? Even if it was, which it's clearly not, then that doesn't make it postmodern either. Because not all grand narratives are postmodern.
Well, again,
the concept of grand narratives is quote-unquote postmodern, at least the way they define it specifically.
All right, okay.
A meta-narrative is, it's a meta-narrative, and a meta-narrative is essentially a narrative about narratives. There's a lot of story epics that do things like that, where I think, like, if you have something that has a lot of factions, like D&D or something, then there's going to be some stories about stories, like the way that Star Trek does that a lot, especially the Next Generation.
Yeah.
How one tribe, let's say, of individuals interacts with another tribe, let's say, of individuals.
Right.
They do that, but that doesn't make it postmodern.
Right. I mean, we're talking about...
It is a term that's used a lot in postmodernism, but what are you going to say?
Sorry. Smart.
Well, I was going to say, when you're talking about a meta-narrative, it usually exists outside of the narrative itself. So when I say a frame narrative, that's inside the story. So it becomes a story within a story. That's the idea.
Yeah.
But a meta-narrative is like this concept that exists outside that just naturally springs up from your own mind, your own imagination, saying, oh, this is really a narrative about people who love each other. Or Fight Club is really a romance.
So like themes?
It could be from themes.
The one thing I want to say is that a grand narrative, as used in postmodernism, is rather specific. It's like a grand narrative is like a holistic and comprehensive retelling of historical events and experiences. So it's more like sometimes how we conceptualize certain periods of history, saying that throughout that history, that kind of philosophy was believed in. So that's kind of like a grand narrative.
Is it like the history of your people, or imagined history of your people?
Exactly.
That of another people?
You could imagine what Hitler thought of the German race, like the German history of the Germans. That's kind of a grand narrative of the Nazis. So how they conceptualized all that.
It's really
so it sounds like what he's...
Yeah, go ahead.
First. It sounds like what he's saying is you can take the concept of meta-narrative within postmodernism, and if you think hard enough, you can apply it to any fictional story in anime. Therefore, the entire medium is postmodern. That's what it sounds like the claim he's making is.
It's a very loosely argued term, and there's not much stuff for us to reference. In the context of what he's referring to, because this is one guy.
Well, because he just keeps giving us summaries about what things are, which, granted, a lot of people on the left don't do that. they just take things as given. So I'll give him that. But it's like he's forgetting to actually give us an argument. So maybe the argument comes later in the video. It looks like we're still near the beginning of it.
Honestly, I've never actually went to the effort of studying this because the term meta is thrown around a lot in gaming and in stories and all this other stuff.
Yeah, meta is used a lot.
So it's what is the context this guy's referring to? And he's referring to that one specific dude who invented the term, and that's specific to the idea of history and what it...
I actually know quite a bit about that because in linguistics, a lot of modern linguistics absolutely love this shit, and so I had to read a lot about it.
So I actually have the Wikipedia article up for what the definition of meta-narrative is and why it's historically relevant. But the thing is, it does say right at the beginning, it says it's a term that's commonly used in critical theory, most particularly postmodernism. So it doesn't sound like it's a term that's used for fiction a lot.
No, it
isn't. It's more about a term that's used in history, in like historical summarization and stuff like that.
Absolutely, that's exactly the thing.
So it looks like he's misapplying it to fiction.
Yes. They are.
I mean, you could use the word colloquially for fiction if you want.
Well,
you can use the word colloquially for fiction if you want, like how I was saying story about stories, like in TNG.
Yeah, but
that was just me trying to give this guy credibility.
This is very weird to take from two different disciplines. Like you can take ethics, and you can apply that to aesthetics, just because the concept of the good is always reduced to is it pleasurable or is it painful. And we can apply that very clearly to justice as well. This is a good thing to do. This is a bad thing to do. This is the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do. We can do that. The arguments are almost the same. The end result is talking about good, bad, or good, bad quality over here, or good, bad behavior over there. Same concepts. But how you get there, what you're talking about, totally different. So the mentality is the same. But this is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's talking about. And referencing the war is just like, I don't know. Like when he showed that scene of Jesus, and then he showed the scene of the war, and you're just like, what is this about?
What does he even want to talk about? Yeah.
Is he talking about like Jungian concepts of roles of here's the hero character?
I think that he should make smaller claims.
He doesn't know any about that.
It's just such a big claim. You're claiming an entire medium supports a very specific philosophical movement. Like you can make the claim that Shawshank Redemption challenges the way prisons are run within the West. And I think that would be a very valid claim because those are the themes of the movie that you might say that could be, if you wanted to use the term out of context, you could say that in Shawshank Redemption, it's somewhat of a meta-narrative of the way that prisons are run within this area of the world. But he doesn't seem to be making very specific claims like that. He's saying a whole medium is postmodern.
Well, okay, there are certain styles of anime, I could argue, that are experimental, which are usually within the horror genre, because that's the best way to express experimental ideas, because you don't feel comfortable.
You're presenting people with the unknown.
Exactly. So there's Paranoia Agent, there's Boogie Pop Phantom. We have all these horror stories that are animated and go, oh yeah, okay, this is experimental, and we can say this is a critique or a deconstruction of the horror genre, and we're doing something new, and we're trying to,
This is psychological horror.
Yeah, we're trying to achieve something through the format by doing something new.
Yeah.
So that is an effective use of saying, yes, we're doing something new for the purposes of the genre itself. We're not destroying the genre, we're reinventing the genre. So that's it.
Yeah, but even then, I'd say psychological horror always comes across as experimental because it is so alien in how you have to write it and shoot it or whatever else in order to make it come across as working.
Yeah, there's always a mystery. There's always this either a supernatural
Not necessarily.
element. I mean, Boogie Pop Phantom is a huge mystery. Paranoia Agent is a huge mystery. Everything is unknown. That is scary and weird and makes you feel uncomfortable. So that is kind of the given with these emotions or these styles of storytelling. And the animation is where you can get really weird. You can get kaleidoscopic. You can get black and white. You can do sketch anime. You can do all sorts of crazy things. And we see that even...
You can use experimental methods to manipulate what the person is seeing, even
Right.
if it's the same scene.
Exactly. And it's monochromatic. It could be all kinds of colors. You could change the, like what was 800 by 600? Was that the resolution of Justice League? All these techniques to change how you perceive the thing you're actually watching, which is still a movie or still an anime show. So
one thing I wanted to mention is that I've been noticing this more and more, that there are so many YouTubers who use philosophical ideas for their essays on arts that have nothing to do with art.
Yeah.
They just want to sound smart, that's all.
Just Wright does it all the
Yes.
time. He uses
Well, yeah,
constantly philosophers.
You heard me
the
at the
stuff-
beginning. This guy
Yeah.
confused me because of the words he was using.
The stuff they wrote about they wrote about art, but then used the writings about art if you want to talk about art, but then they use the stuff like the Hegelian dialectics, which is not doesn't apply to art, it applies to fucking society.
But that seems to be the basis of his argument, is that
Yeah.
he's trying to shift the focus. His argument is that these terms should be applied because they're relevant here.
Well, do a Google search of postmodernism in anime, and you'll find a few posts that are very short, because the people who are talking about this topic don't know exactly what they're trying to say, because they can't reference it. They don't know exactly what
I
it
feel
means.
like someone perhaps shouldn't make this argument until they know, until they've familiarized themselves. I'm not saying
that can't happen. That can never happen, because
until they
postmodernism...
familiarize themselves with terminologies that are used for this particular medium when critiquing it,
Yeah.
and also familiarize themselves with terminologies for what their argument is going to consist of.
This is the problem with any YouTuber or any essayist that doesn't have basic literary or movie terminology figured out. And you can come across them very easily. LitDev and I used to do that 2 years ago. We were just laughing at everyone with a bad take. And they're like, what are they talking about? These words, like themes meant 7 different things in the same video. We were just sitting there like, it can't mean that many. Like maybe 1 or 2, but not 7.
Oh, your four-parter of efapping Vorsch at some point. That was really good stuff. You figured every single method that he's using out, and even the ones that he's probably not even aware of.
It's really easy when you're a clown, because a clown wears bright colored clothes, and it's like, oh, he's wearing yellow. That's this stupid thing he's doing right now with it. Oh, he's wearing a blue hat now. That's another stupid. Like, yeah, that's Vosh is like low-hanging fruit as far as I'm concerned. Everything.
The lowest hanging fruit.
It is so.
The guy that kept changing his shirt.
It is so obnoxious and over the top and wrong, and we just sat there like confused. How a brain, like he was attacking LitDev with the dumbest arguments, and his idea of victory is getting hit by a lightsaber 5 times. And we sat there and we're like,
yeah, I remember that shit.
Wait a second, Kylo Ren beat Rey by getting hit by a lightsaber. I'm not.
His chat kept pointing out that like you're wrong, and then he got like so mad that he just stopped rant altogether.
Yeah, well, these are the people listen to, and we cannot believe that they make money, and they're socialists. It boggles my mind.
Socialism is all the big socialists. They're all confidence artists. They're all con artists.
Just
Wolf
been
is a
watching.
con artist. There's no substance.
Yeah, I had a friend just messaged me on Discord this morning saying, if these guys did not have audiences, they would not have gone down this way of thinking. If they were, someone were to like say, hey, wait, sit them down and say, let's think about things rationally and argue them. And an actual intelligent person, not like a guy who's learning postmodernism, for example, but someone who's actually studied Hegel or Aristotle or any of the other great white dead guys that have great arguments over the years.
Yeah, reflect your ideas.
Yeah, just critique them, and you'll find out that what you're saying, especially with postmodern thought, is a whole lot of nothing. And economic theories.
Well, because postmodernism
it's self-destructive.
is basically...
It's nihilistic.
There are some.
Postmodernism, particularly radical postmodernism, is rooted in the belief that most things are socially conditioned and subjective.
Well, even
But if you get enough down that path, nothing is real, and you can't have an objective, an argument.
oh yeah, I mean, with certain other avenues of thought like existentialism, like Soren Kierkegaard, that was pretty much nihilistic. But he was a religious fellow, so he always had something to fall back on when he was arguing what is the meaning of life and all this other stuff. So he was allowed to experiment with ideas and question his faith, which I thought was fascinating. If you want to read Kierkegaard, I don't really recommend it. But
Kierkegaard.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was confused for a second.
Did I say something else? Sorry.
No. You just pronounced it differently to how I
Oh
have
God!
always heard it.
Don't. Yeah, please don't.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Same with
Yeah,
Immanuel
I was-
Kant. I can't pronounce.
Yeah, I always heard it pronounced Kierkegaard.
Yeah, don't even.
Same.
I'm the
That's
Canadian.
That's why I was
Okay.
confused. I was like,
You
wait,
guys are
hold
the
on.
Europeans.
No, it's very simple with the Germanic and Scandinavian languages. Just pronounce things by the letters that are in the word.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, but
some
you
letters
are
are
saying this to
differently
an
in
English
English.
native.
Yeah.
So
No,
Ah, yeah,
some
the-
letters
that
are
doesn't
pronounced
mean
I
anything.
know the English
North
pronounce the
American
vowels wrong.
English native. Yeah, very
like
different.
the,
that too.
for
Yeah,
example.
the vowel.
We have
Actually, sounds
bastardized.
And again-
more like first language English or Italian. First,
First,
you said like you.
English is first, but then there's also Ukrainian and Italian. I have, but I've forgotten.
Oh,
those.
that's wonderful.
Ukrainian is good lord. How many B's and Z's and Y's and W's? Never mind.
One
Anyway.
thing I will say there, pronunciation can even differ quite widely between Swiss and High German.
So long as I
Oh,
could,
yeah.
I can order the cheese properly, and they look at me like, "Oh yeah, I know what you mean." Then I'm
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
perfectly.
That's what matters.
High
Salient.
German will get lost in Southern German anyway already.
I remember,
Yeah.
I remember I had to
the-
take a.
Badner
I had to take it.
pride themselves on the Badner and the Schwaben pride themselves on their state motto. The motto of the state of Baden-Württemberg is, "We can do everything but High German."
Okay, didn't know that.
All right. Anyway, let's get back to the video because I don't know if we're going to finish this today.
Okay.
Establish a fairly convincing meta-narrative of liberal capitalism as the end of history, one that only really broke apart with the Great Recession.
End of history.
Did China and other periphery states not continue to modernize? Quite possibly, and this causes real problems for the postmodern thesis. Many scholars have argued
Oh, no. He brought up the end of history, which is the end product of Hegelian thought. That is the march through history to the point where history stops happening, because everything has been done, everything has developed. For example, Francis Fukuyama wrote a relatively famous book in that vein, and it's just wrong, because history still keeps happening, even if we erase all borders, because that's part of this deterministic belief about history, that history needs to happen and we need to push it forward, because in hindsight, because they make the mistake that because in hindsight everything seems like it just falls into place, that all the future is also determined like that, like a divine plan. And they believe that this is why they have to erase borders, why they have to enact a one world government, because it is inevitable to happen at some point. So it is our obligation to actively push for that end goal. And they believe that once this is accomplished, that there will be no more history happening. Like people having disputes with each other, and the like, or other developments. And this is just, it's just religious insanity, if you ask me.
Okay, let's. I honestly, I was not paying attention to what this guy just said. Let me just rewind for a bit.
I would like to ask
he's
him if he
still
wants a
summarizing.
vinaigrette with that word salad.
All right, let's try this again.
without a
Croutons.
doubt, it can be argued. Didn't neoliberalism establish a fairly convincing meta-narrative of liberal capitalism as the end of history?
I have absolutely no idea.
What?
No.
Yeah, I would also say no.
I would
to what he
actually
just
say
said.
no.
It would take a couple minutes to unravel what he just said, but the short answer of it is no.
I'll leave
Already
it
the
at a short
statement,
answer.
the claim that liberal capitalism,
It's the end of
which we would have to talk about in the first place, made this claim. I would say no, it didn't.
No, he said that neoliberalism made the claim that liberal capitalism is the end of history.
Same difference.
It really is. It really is.
Let's just keep going. This is too weird.
Let's just say no and keep going.
One that only really broke apart with the Great Recession?
No, what? How? Okay, we're stopping. We're keeping going. Okay.
It's just saying random things.
The Great Recession was the end of liberal. Like, I don't even want to touch that. Holy crap.
Yes, let's just say no and continue.
China and other periphery states not continue to modernize? Quite possible.
China periphery states did not continue.
Honestly, what is the states?
What are China's periphery states?
What do they have to do with the Great Recession?
I'm laughing so much. This is just so much like some of the shit I had to read in uni. I'm just like, God.
Like he's
What
jumping
is this guy
all over.
talking about?
I don't know.
It's scatterbrained pseudo-intellectual word salad that is supposed to make the listener or
Exactly.
reader believe that the author is somewhat intelligent, when it is all just smoke and mirrors.
Okay, let's keep going.
Possibly, and this causes real problems for the postmodern thesis. Many scholars have argued that postmodernity is
What is the postmodern thesis again?
We never said that.
Yeah, he
post-
never.
I think
It's the same as the
I don't
Cruel
know.
Angels thesis.
What's the Cruel Angels thing?
The intro song to the Evangelion. Oh, that was good. Okay, let's keep going.
really
know.
just a new phase in our continued existence within modernity as a whole. And insofar
What the fuck is he talking about?
I don't know what he's going on about.
This is what happens. This is what happens with your writing, with your thinking and writing and orating when you read too much Foucault.
Okay,
Yes,
well
it
that's
actually is. So I get what he's basically I can follow it, but in the end, it doesn't make any sense. He's just using big words to explain, hey, life happens.
Yeah, if you will be able. I think if you really put your mind to it and watch the whole 11 minutes of this and
Like 6 or 7 times.
understand everything he said and tear it apart and then condense it down to distill it down to what he was actually saying, you will come out with probably 1 or 3 sentences at best, short sentences.
And the
That
answer
is
to
all-
all
that
of
is-
them is no.
if he was less earnest about his pronunciation and his delivery, I'd be like, oh, he's going somewhere. But he's just like, it's like, dude.
Yeah, but and I tell you, a philosopher will have read Foucault. Smuts, you said you probably read Foucault, as if I remember right. And
Summarize.
yes, no,
Very
Summaries,
briefly.
Okay. Read an
Yeah,
original
some of
Foucault
it.
book. Read an original Foucault book, and you will find exactly this stuff.
Yes,
and
it's
you can
insufferable.
condense Foucault down to just a few couple sentences, and he draws it out over pages upon pages with this pretentious thesaurus babbling drivel, because
It's very
this
much
man
like
cannot
Heidegger.
articulate his thoughts at all. And I think in part he's doing it deliberately because he knows I have to fill 800 pages to sell a book.
All right. Okay.
And then people mistake that for style.
Oh, I'm so happy my family bought me another bottle of Woodford Reserve. And I'm just like, oh,
I don't have any alcohol.
You're kidding. Oh, what happened to the red breast?
Oh, I drank it with some friends.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Oh, lucky guy.
That's a good ending.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta get some friends who like bourbon. I don't have any.
I love bourbon.
I know, it's fantastic.
Right, you don't have any bourbon or friends?
I don't have any friends who drink bourbon that are close by. They're downtown.
Okay.
Oh, that explains it.
Yeah.
as we
The only
continue to
bourbon
live
I
under
ever
the
got
rule
was
of
too
capital,
expensive
I
to
tend to
buy.
agree. Nevertheless, Lyotard establishes something vital about postmodernity. if we're to use it as a conceptual framework, it simply cannot be used merely to denote aesthetic tendencies in art, the way you might call a building brutalist. It must be used to establish a clear periodization.
What?
What is a periodization?
Okay, he needs to define purely aesthetic tendencies, and he needs to define that other thing he just
Was
said.
that periodization or periodization?
Whatever the fuck he said.
I don't know what he said.
Periodization.
Periodization. I
If
apologize for. Sorry.
Yeah, if I try to because they come up with random neologisms all the time.
Here we go.
And
I got
this
it.
sounds like
Periodization is the systematic planning of athletic or physical training. The aim is to reach the best possible performance in the most important competitive of the year. What the
okay, I doubt he meant that definition because he just through the context of what he was talking about, he came up with a neologism, with a new word that he tries to fit into that. And what he's trying to use periodization for is that we deliberately, we actively, consciously put certain things into specific periods in history.
How does
that
anime
is the
do
most
that?
obvious interpretation of that word.
But how does anime do that, though?
How are we?
I don't know.
How are we
He's making
structuring
weird
history
claims without substance?
How are we beginning from human history and then running into anime or the art form of anime? How does that connect?
His example is brutalist architecture, but yeah, that happens in a specific period of history, but that doesn't mean that we periodize it by putting it into that period of time. It's just
we can talk about anime.
The presence of the art defines the time,
right? Yeah, we could talk about the style of anime in the 70s and the 80s and how the techniques have evolved and the color spectrum and the technology and all that stuff. We could say, yeah, this is the anime from the 80s. This is like Sailor Moon was popular in the 90s and all yada yada. We go down the line, right? But why?
I think I know what's going on. Okay, this is a new thought coming up. I'm fine. I'm looking for words. Because he's ascribing like all of them to blank slate theory, which means everything is socially constructed, which means actively socially constructed. And this also means that a certain style of art or architecture, let's just stick with the brutalist example, are not emerging, and thereby we then define the period in which it is present as the brutalist architecture period, but that we define a period as brutalist and then ascribe the architecture into that, which would be active. But because in the social constructionists' mindset, everything has to be done actively by humans. That is how they understand socialization. It cannot be that something naturally emerges and we then just describe the thing that naturally emerges. Because that would mean that there is an element of nature or of environment at present, and that is not allowed in the social constructionist mindset. The social constructionist mindset, biology has no bearing, and environment has no or very little bearing. 100% of everything is socially constructed, which means actively socially constructed.
Okay,
I will sometimes say they mean passive, but in the end, if you really listen to them and take them apart, it is all active social constructionism in their mind.
But that just sounds that sounds incredibly religious in nature. Like
there
has to be some faith in that. You can't just believe that unless it's faith based.
Yeah, but socialism, if you take it apart, is a faith based. It believes in being correct, in being divine. It tries to bring about utopia. It has certain you could say deities it believes in the sense of concepts that are worshipped. Like in old pantheons, in non-monotheistic pantheons,
I understand.
God is
I understand what you're saying. You're saying that. Well, no, you're saying that it is similar to religious tendency in that their tendency to worship these particular concepts is similar to the way that religions worship deities.
Yeah, and that
which often
are,
represented concepts. No, I can actually understand that. I can actually understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I just like to hit this home, but one of their deities is not equality. The other thing, equity. The not the equal before the law concept. That is a good thing, but the everything has to be made the same concept.
And it isn't just that. What makes equity dangerous is that you can contrive, you can lie about how much one subpopulation needs to be equated to another. That's what makes equity dangerous. You can be dishonest about who needs more. That's what makes equity dangerous.
Yeah, one aspect of it, or very very obvious and thing that is easier to explain to people who haven't dug into this really, and it's a thing. I think that's a thing that's overlooked a lot, and thanks for bringing it up. But in the end, the big danger of the equity faith is that it is always a race to the bottom, because you're still not equal enough, so we can't prop someone up. So instead, we will tear someone else down, and this will over.
And you can lie. Not only that, but you're right. What you just said is 100% right. It is used to do that, but it's also used to be dishonest about who has more and who has less. So you can use it to dishonestly tear people down that already don't have so much, and then add more to people that already have a fair amount. So you can dishonestly
you bring all the
destroy foundations.
The idea, these horrible ideas of historic and generational exploitation and guilt and all of that, which is also akin to
because they
original
use
sin.
Those terminologies.
Yes,
they use the terminologies we're talking about to they exploit their own terminologies to dishonestly and arbitrarily decide who should be torn down and who should be built up.
Yeah, and that tearing down also includes going to the point of facilitating either passive or active genocide, like letting certain people starve because historically, because some ancestor did a bad thing, they now do not deserve any food anymore. They would go that far. This is the faith of equity. It is belief in the reaper, because that's the only deity that makes everyone the same.
All right, let's keep going. Here is Great Scott. Thank you, sir. This guy, Zeria's analysis of Code Geass, my personal favorite anime, is cancer. He compares an ultra empire to reality and calls for violent uprisings. Okay.
No, not a surprise.
I'm not surprised either.
Gee, I wonder where he gets those ideas from. Huh.
I wonder.
Anyway, let's. What the hell was he talking about again?
I don't know. Fuck him.
Brutalism.
Yeah,
periodization of brutalism.
Aesthetics and
a structure for aesthetic something or other in.
He was saying, he made up a term, and it happened to be a term that already existed.
Periodization, yeah.
He was saying, yeah.
All right.
Okay, you might ask, what the fuck does all of this have to do with anime?
Thank you!
The initial provocative statement that all anime is postmodern. Under Lyotard's definition, that would certainly be the case. At least for anything that people in the West call anime. After all, Astro Boy first aired in 1863.
Okay.
What?
What the fuck is he going on about?
Wait, is he now
arguing about when anime started?
Isn't he 40 years too late?
No, isn't he now? Is he now arguing that everything created post-war era is postmodern?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
I mentioned this. This was what I talked about before.
Wrong.
He is 150 years too late.
Yeah, well, I was just talking about Astro Boy. Okay, Astro Boy's original run was in the 50s to late 60s.
Yeah, not 1860.
Okay.
So he got He got that date wrong. This is what I was talking about, editing your own work. He wasn't paying attention to what he wrote and what he said. Or it was written 1960, and then he went 1860.
Yeah, but he talked about the 18th? No, but he talked about
like
the anime.
Astro Boy led to the assassination of Franz Ferdinand.
Oh,
so
that makes more sense. Okay.
What?
those damn Japanese, I
Yeah.
tell you.
What? Yeah. Slavoj Žižek was definitely inspired by Esteban.
Oh, not Zizek.
I'm also gonna fly away with my bullets.
Will
It's all Astro Boy.
will Zizek ever wash his beard?
Oh, God.
It's not a rhetorical question.
Oh. Anyway, let's see what he has to say. Yeah.
Exactly when postmodernity began is kinda unclear, but the shift was well underway by this point.
Okay, it's not hard. There's a guy named Foucault, and he said some stuff. And he said he invented it.
No, not quite. It's a French
wasn't
guy
the
named
start of it.
Foucault.
Oh, yeah?
That's important to really make sure that people know it was a French guy.
We'll just say the French did it. And that's
Yes.
good enough for me.
Point, if it wasn't already complete. If postmodernity is a period, and that period is post-war, then in being post-war, anime is inherently postmodern.
Are you joking?
That's
kidding?
a dumb claim. That's a dumb claim.
Everything 1945, guys.
That is.
Or like,
I knew it.
after
I am
First
too
World War.
overloaded to figure out what fallacy that just was. I'm sorry.
It's just
But
so many.
he's just defining stuff around until he gets the final definition that he wants.
How about the
I
Gulf War?
told you he would go for
War.
that.
How about the Kosovo
That's
War?
why he brought up Leo, whatever his name is. That's why he started out with the period after the war. Hey, that's postmodernity.
What a bizarre thing to say.
No.
Everything is postmodern then.
Yeah, literally everything is postmodern.
And what will be
Yeah,
the
when I
era
take
after
a shit, that's
postmodernism?
postmodern.
Postmodernism?
Yes.
That's dumb.
What a silly thing
If
to
you look
say.
at, this is my problem technically with the term modern and postmodern.
Now wait a second. Does that mean
because
postmodern?
in general, in all of history, every present, all the people living in the present of a certain year in history will consider themselves modern.
Wait, does
Nobody
he
in the
mean,
antique called himself antique.
Does he mean postmodern in the sense of an era, or does he mean postmodern in the sense of
Era.
art? Oh, an era.
In the sense of, I think they defined the modern era as coinciding with the modern art as
Right.
ending kind
Cubism.
of with the Second World War.
Right. Okay.
And he's trying to piggyback the postmodern ideology and or pseudo-philosophy on art and architecture.
Yeah, he's mixing the two.
Yeah.
He's piggybacking. He is doing the very thing that should not be done. But that postmodernism and all socialist subversion always does. It uses words that do not fit to it. It tries to hide behind innocuous things or good things in order to push its own ideas, in order to at some point take power. And this is what this is doing
at the
here.
beginning, when I first came in here, and I was saying, why isn't it just referring to periods when you say postmodern art, modern art, and contemporary art? He really is merging those two different meanings of the word postmodern.
Yeah, and if
Yes.
you wonder about
He's just putting them together.
Yeah, and because you were confused about his words like periodization and other words he was using, he was just pulling out of his sleeve. The common thing that I've noticed with these people is the many big words they use, they never look up the definitions of. They just come up with the words because they think they feel right in the moment, and they have their own personal definitions of these words in their heads, and they never explain them. They just want you or hope you will agree with them because it feels right.
First of all, it doesn't feel right. It makes me feel like shit.
You try to actually understand it.
But here's the thing. First of all, it doesn't feel right. It makes me feel like shit. And second of all, when you go out of your way to examine it, it's like, well, no, you're misusing the term. Here, it's like, well, postmodern means, are you talking about postmodern fucking architecture and art, or are you talking about postmodern like the political philosophical theory? And he's using it to describe both and acting like it's the same thing.
Yeah, and
But while also applying
you
it as an
disagree and
error.
you feel disgusted by it because you're an adult. You're not easily dazzled by big words and a confidence artist. You want to actually understand what's going on, and that's why you cannot. That's why you are incompatible with postmodernist philosophy.
All right, let's please try and get through this because I am getting a headache.
That's the point of this video, to give you one.
I'm getting an entire body ache.
Wow.
Checkmate.
Impressive.
atheists. Admittedly,
Wait, what? Wait, whoa.
What?
a period, and that period is post-war. Then in being post-war, anime is inherently postmodern. QED, checkmate atheists. Admittedly, though, that
What?
What is
That
atheism?
was supposed to be a joke.
What does that have to do with atheism?
It's a bad one. It's a bad joke, but it's just a bad joke.
I don't even understand it. Anyway, let's go.
that statement doesn't actually help us to understand anime or anything else. No, the theorist who truly establishes a base on which to productively call all anime postmodern is Marxist critic Frederick Jameson. Jameson establishes postmodernism
Marxist
as what
or
he
critic
calls
of
the
Marx?
cultural logic of late capitalism, the newest stage of this mode of production defined by total globalization, an economic model of mass
course it has to be
consumption, and the more
Marxist.
fluid movement of capital, especially in the financial sphere.
So he's an economist or a Marxist critic? Like, what is he?
I don't think any Marxist
I think
is an
he's
economist.
not
They're just
critic.
LARPing as economists. But that's my joke.
Is he talking about material Marxist, like material dialectic, or is he talking about money? Like, what does he do? I'm okay.
Philosopher, you were laughing. You can explain, maybe?
Oh no, I was just laughing that of fucking course it had to be a Marxist.
Marxismus, yes, that's a
Yeah, and then I think he
Matthews
talked a
did.
bit about capital and stuff
Mhm.
and fluent and just
yeah.
Marxist stuff.
I just want to bring up Matthews in the chat just used the word Marxism, and that is a thing we lately started using in Germany for Murks, MURX. Is a word, I think it's from Yiddish, that just means crap.
Oh, okay.
So he's
Yeah,
a
so-
shittist?
Yeah, so Marxism is actually Marxism because it just Marxist
Oh.
stuff.
That's kind of
could-
funny because
So could
in,
we
in,
say like scheissist?
in our dialect, Murkse means something completely different.
Oh,
It
what
means
does
if,
it mean?
manhandling, basically.
Well, that's also not wrong.
Okay, let's all right, let's go.
As a cultural logic, postmodernism might be defined as
As a cultural logic.
Also, previously I wanted to say I'm sorry if I laugh a lot, but it just reminds me so much of so many papers I've had to read in uni that I'm just it just makes me laugh and happy that I'm not at uni anymore.
Does anyone know what a cultural logic might be?
Oh, I think it's kind of like the logic a culture adheres to, something like that.
That would be the obvious interpretation
Okay, let's hope.
of the term. I bet some of these people have special
Oh, they have-
different definitions
but
of
no,
that.
sometimes it happens so often that they use words like that to just mean, as I just said, like super simple stuff. They kept using a super complex word that I made up to just mean stereotype and stuff like that. So
We
it's
should just
I don't know.
ignore the fact that he said it as a cultural logic because he's about to describe what? Marxism? What's he about to describe?
I
That's-
already fucking forgot.
I don't know.
as the language through
I
which
don't
late
particularly care.
capitalist culture speaks, no matter what its creators intend. And it's hard to argue this point, because how could this be avoided? Mass consumption
What is being avoided? What are we talking about?
So I think it's so the cultural logic of late-stage capitalism is hard to be avoided if you're a person working under the conditions of late-stage capitalism.
So wait a second. This relates to
say.
an animation studio because they're capitalists, and
I
therefore
think so.
Huh.
okay. Okay.
Also, thanks to Space Junk in the chat, abmurksen is a German verb that means to kill someone.
Oh, here's Mike Testa. Jameson sounds like he should report on Spider-Man. I was thinking Jameson as in, I want some whiskey right about now. And Jameson would be good.
Yeah, I would like some whiskey.
Nice, smooth
Some
Irish
inoffensive
whiskey. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Has fundamentally altered what art even is, smashing the high and low culture distinction with a golf club and sticking popular versus niche art in its place. Global flows of capital have delocalized culture in many ways, creating situations in which
Wait. Art is now both the same, high or low, as a result of large amounts of global capital?
I'm lost.
Does that mean someone bought like a whole bunch of Mercedes and then a whole bunch of like Asian porn at the same time? It's like it's all the same. Like it's just everything in between.
Yes.
I don't get it.
I'm gonna start a new industrial revolution through hentai.
You know, he's
Might
gish
actually
galloping like crazy.
I think he's saying that because of the predominant existence of capitalism right now, that means that anything created within that culture cannot not be postmodern because it was created within a postmodern context.
I think what he could be trying to say is when we got media from other countries, like in the 70s and 80s, like anime, when it came in, everyone was like, oh my God, what is this stuff? And we were all flabbergasted. We didn't know what it was. And
What? When?
the 70s and 80s, when anime came to North America, to Europe, etc., when it finally got mainstream, or not mainstream, it was becoming slowly integrated into movie stores and rental stores and stuff like that.
No. It's more than that. There were, especially in continental Europe, especially Netherlands, Sweden, and Germany and Switzerland were actively commissioning Japan to make cartoons for them, anime.
Yes, but that's
we
different.
own-
Like we mean like the ones that like they intend for Japanese audiences. They just get
Yes.
like imported to the Western audiences.
Right.
'Cause,
Yeah, all right,
of course,
all right,
like
but-
I know what you mean. Like
all of these classic things that we all thought were cartoons were anime that we had.
Like Niels Holgersson
really
and Maya
good, really good children's
And
stuff.
these were bootleg copies that some countries couldn't even get a hold of because they were just legal to buy from whatever. And you had all these these dubs and subs and makeshift brands just coming in through South America or parts of America to transfer over. And then in the 90s came, or late 90s, we had bulletin boards. We could download stuff and we could watch original Sailor Moon episodes, believe it or not. So these things did exist. And I think because of globalization, we're getting more media, more products from the rest of the world. I think that's what he's trying to refer to. I could be wrong.
And the next thing is I'm growing problems with how Marxists define capitalism, because they do not seem to solely refer to fiat currency based monetary systems and hedge funds and all of that crap, but instead they think all labor that is paid for in money, any sort of money, which means a universal trade good, is capitalism somehow.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around how media and anime was influenced by hedge funds in other parts of the world. I don't know.
They just call every exchange that involves a universal trade good, such as money, capitalism.
Okay.
That seems to be what they
that
complain
might
about.
be it. I don't know. I'm just a little confused. Anyway.
The difference between various national and regional cultures are overemphasized in order to appeal to global markets, which want their idea of what a group's culture should look like. As anime fans, we should be especially aware of this one. Aside from novels and newspapers, almost every media form that the average person takes enjoyment from today came into its own after the war. No wonder postmodernism is a useful term for describing our culture under Jameson's framework. Late capitalism's developments have objectively...
Is Jameson's framework useful?
What?
After the war. No wonder postmodernism is a useful term for describing our culture under Jameson's framework. Late capitalism's developments have objectively had an impact on the way we experience life, no matter how Marxist you are. What, though?
Is he assuming we're Marxists?
If you take it literally, it also means
I
if
think
you are
that he's saying
0%
that
Marxist.
I think he's saying that even if you're like a radical leftist, you're still anything you create is still subject to your bias due to being exposed to a capitalistic world. And I guess he just finds that worth saying for some reason.
I'm trying to... Like, my bullshit sensor's like at 80% right now. I'm just like, okay, this is...
Only 80%?
That's it?
There is
Mine
some...
are 260.
There is some meaning...
You are a very generous man.
There is some meaning I can sort of get what he's getting at. It's like, all right, I get it. To a point. But if he keeps going with this frame of thinking, I'm just going to lie down. I just... Holy, okay.
The whole point of this type of stuff is to fry your brain. It's not to make sense, it's to fry your brain.
All right.
Notable traits of postmodernism, according to Jameson. For ease of discussion, let's say they're fourfold, which they're really not, but it's close enough. First, there's what he calls the waning of historicity. What this means is that
historicity, what is that?
That's what I mean. They come up with
It's a word they love to use, historicity, basically, something related
Is
to
that an actual word?
Something is historic. The historicity of this... Like, if you were... No, seriously, it basically just means the history of that thing.
History...
Would the German equivalent be Geschichtlichkeit?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, God.
It basically really just means that, hey, the historicity of this concept. It's the history of this concept.
Then why not just say history? Yeah.
Because that doesn't sound smart.
Yes. It literally is that simple.
It's dumb. It's redundant.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but they don't want to sound
sounds like
smart.
the name of a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh card.
This is like...
Yeah, but this is what I mean with they are pseudo-intellectuals. They're not intellectuals, they're pseudo-intellectuals. That's why they come up with words that sound smart, but aren't. If you properly use language, you do use the words that are already there. You do not come up with words that are not needed. A neologism requires that it is needed. If you already have a word that describes the concept you're trying to describe, you do not need a new word. But they come up with new words in order to sound smart. That's the whole intent. They're not intelligent people. They're pseudo-intellectuals.
Okay.
All pretentious. It's all pretentiousness.
Let's keep going.
The real historical content of culture disappears. To be sure, media still has a connection to the past. Series like, say, Tolkien Rambu, or even Rose of Versailles draw upon notable moments in history to establish their settings. However, from Jameson's standpoint, this is not history as such, which is characterized by class struggles and sharp contradictions.
Okay, so he's obviously a communist.
Not inherently, though.
Oh, you got that now?
Well, no, the definition.
I thought at the point of he's a Marxist.
He said he was he was a Marxist critic. Right, so it's like, oh, he's against Marxism, or he's trying to, evaluate it. It's fine.
No. He's a critic who bases his critique on the basis of Marxism.
Oh, I just got that. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Also, I really like how this guy's just like, well, this person said that person said that, therefore it must be the case that what they said is true.
Yeah, this is like pure help.
Yeah. It's A said X, B said Y, Therefore, the conclusion, the synthesis of both is Z and must be true. Because the conclusion.
How about like
technically,
examine like an
technically
anime,
the conclusion
example,
of
does it really apply to these standards? But no.
the mind trick is X and Y are just claims, but the conclusion of that is Z. Z is the logical, objectively the objective conclusion of these two claims. Therefore, Z is true because it's the correct conclusion of two claims. It doesn't matter that the claims are just claims that are unfounded. And this is how these people justify that their new concept is correct, because they concluded it by way of logic. It's dumb. Because they argue without substance.
All right, let's go.
Instead, it's a simulacrum, or a mere image of what history actually is. A work like Fate Grand Order draws on real and fictional events from the past, but it draws more on objects that we associate with the past than on the actual past itself.
Oh, you mean symbolism?
Isn't that what we do anyway when we reference the past? We don't say the entire past. We say the thing in the past. Like,
I think historians.
To be fair, Fate Grand Order isn't a good example for what you're saying, Smug Boy, because Fate Grand Order, like, they make Roosevelt go Super Saiyan 3 and shit. So it's like, all right,
yeah,
you know.
But they reference King Arthur. They don't reference the entire novel. They don't talk about the entire poem. It's like,
no,
I know King Arthur.
They just mention Roosevelt so that they can give him his shonen moment.
Right, that's fine.
And yeah.
No one's saying it's the past.
Modern.
No one's saying this happened in the past. It's like, no, he wasn't. King Arthur wasn't a real person. It wasn't a real woman. Like, no one's saying that.
I just love that he basically just said that, Fate Grand Order is not historically accurate. It's basically just what he said.
It was the most extreme thing he could say. He seems to really like saying extreme things to make claims.
Modernism is characterized by a new depthlessness. This doesn't, of course, mean that the cultural objects we interact with have no deeper content. Rather, it implies that the
I'm watching this guy and his hand movements. It's scaring the crap. Like, what the hell is this guy saying? Is he like baking a pie, or is he like trying to like play the piano? What is going on?
How did you
I'm not seeing him right now. I'm in another room playing Wario World while I talk.
All right.
Now that you mention it, that kind of always reminds me of the very energetic movements Hitler sometimes had when having speeches.
It's like Lenin. It's like watching Lenin. That's bashing his shoe on a podium.
Yes, comrade.
Dominant content in postmodernism is that which lies on the surface. This
is mixing
design trends like minimalism, but can also be seen in the way in which culture has increasingly moved towards scenarios. What I mean,
I would beg of you that your explanations would be minimalist. Then we might actually be able to follow.
He has just said.
But then it would probably be self-evident to him that he's full of crap.
Let me rewind this. I just lost it.
We've moved to scenarios.
This leads to design trends like minimalism, but can also be seen in the way in which culture has increasingly moved towards scenarios. What I mean by this is that in our era, what draws us most often to a show is its surface elements, the scenario it presents on a highway.
Okay, that's like saying, when I look at a beautiful woman across the bar or whatever, I notice that she's beautiful. It's like, yeah.
This is not a modern trend, you idiot. Why do you think a Roman chose to watch that play or the other play? Probably because the scenario was interesting.
It's like, hey, this bright color sun burns my eyes. Maybe I should stop looking at it. You're right, I should. Oh, thanks.
This is some of the most basic shit ever.
It's like, graffiti today in toilet graffiti and graffiti in Rome, in especially in Pompeii, where a lot was found, and graffiti in ancient Egypt of which there are some archaeological finds, they're all the same. It's this guy was here, my dick is big, this guy is gay, that one's a whore. That is what you will find throughout history in hieroglyphs, and it's the same with the attributes that he's describing here. That's nothing unique to postmodern, the postmodern era. That is universal. And anything universal is not restricted to a specific era.
You know how there are like supermodels who are tall and beautiful and buxom and have great eyes and hair and bodies? Yeah.
I just had this scene in my head of an archaeologist.
Have you seen any Roman or Greek statues lately?
Ever notice how actors are really well spoken and have really great acting skills, and they're beautiful and attractive, and they look good, sound good?
I just had this scene in my head of an archaeologist interpreting some hieroglyphs and saying, "Oh, this one is saying that Pussy Slayer 69 was here."
Yeah.
All right, let's
look up websites about ancient Roman graffiti. It's hilarious.
Here's Alex Halo. Fate is otakus putting otaku culture in history and myths, with waifus and with some hentai, and mages trying to get to a thing called the root. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Love it.
I don't know where to start with Fate. It did start when
Fate
it first
Zero.
came out, and now there's so much.
Just
of
watch
it.
Fate
It's
Zero.
like Gundam
Zero.
or
Fate
or
Zero.
Macross.
Zero is the best one.
And then watch the
Okay.
movies, and then you're fine.
Okay.
That's it.
For the love of God, watch Zero. It's so good.
Yeah. Okay. You will miss some references, but that's fine. It's still good. You'll enjoy it. Anyway, let's go.
Level. Themes and such are important and worthwhile, sure, but along
How did we get to themes? What the hell?
The themes.
most often to a show is its surface elements, the scenario it presents on a high level. Themes and such are important and worthwhile, sure, but alongside style they faded to the background relative to modernist art, whose scenarios were often...
They don't fade into the background. They're always there. What is?
I don't know how he comes up with these things.
I don't know how he strings these things together.
How does a theme
They
fade?
don't logically follow.
A theme is an intrinsic part of a story. It's the conflict that is most resembling whatever's happening. It's what the story is about. It's like man versus man or man versus machine or whatever. It doesn't fade away unless the story is about now something else. Then it's stupid, I don't know, romance crap, and it's going back to action adventure. I don't know, maybe that's the point of the show. But not intrinsically. It's not. No. It's always there. Anyway.
and banal in spite of their rich depth. To return to Fate, it's the surface level fact of a war for the Holy Grail between historical figures that draws many to the series. There is more there, and Jameson's statement of trends can sometimes come across as excessive, in acting as if depth has totally disappeared. But it's the—
Wait a second. He's trying to apply what one guy said about the depth of whatever in regards to a show, which may or may not have depth, because he thinks it's there. Okay, I mean, that's not a very good argument, but all you have to do is show us with the depth of the show or a scene of the show and then apply that to whatever the hell philosophy this guy's talking about. Wow, I just empty idea loosely connected to empty media idea.
these surface elements which take priority, something which shapes the works themselves. It's in this context that culture begins to draw endlessly on itself. Anime is a stellar example of that, as countless shows merely reiterate and recombine broad narrative archetypes set out by other works in the subculture. The third
That's what
characteristic—
all art has always done. And all writing has always done. What are you talking about? There's nothing that is inherent to any modern or postmodern era or this specific genre or subgenre of art.
I remember when Plato's Socrates was bemoaning how derivative all the other poets were compared to what's his name? Oh crap, I can't remember his name. It's like so funny. It's like, oh, they're all just borrowing from that guy who came up with it first, who borrowed it from other people who had oral traditions. He just wrote it down. It's the only difference.
Yeah, do you? How many Romeo and Juliet stories there are around the time Romeo and Juliet came out? There are German versions of accomplished or highly regarded poets. That is just it's just the same story, just not as good like Schiller's Kabale und Liebe. That's Romeo and Juliet, just bit different setting, but it's the same story. It's enough. Just he's talking crap. He's just making up shit. He's making claims about reality that just are false.
Trait of postmodernism is the waning of affect. Affect, here, needs to be understood as something like emotion, though it's not exactly the same thing. To Jameson, postmodern culture has lost all appearance of the ego, and we are no longer able to imagine the individual human situation which leads to a piece of art. This
no.
Wait a second.
That is not everyone's problem. That is the problem of you people, because you are narcissists. You have no empathy, which is a key feature of narcissism, and that is why you are unable to do this.
Is he making the argument that the art has to be inspired by something real to be believed, or that the artist has to experience it to be real, or like what? The ego of what? The ego of the creator, or the ego of the character? I don't know what he's referring to in this regard.
Philosopher, can you help?
So it was what I've been fucking blanking. I was just stopped listening. What?
you studied this. Don't you have some antibodies against this?
Oh, I do, but I'm just like, if somebody, it's so fucking late here that I'm.
All right, we only have 3 minutes left. We'll just,
I could come up with something, but I don't want to.
We don't know what he's saying yet. Let him clarify his ideas.
I do not wonder why this is the last video of this person. So,
you think he's clarifying anything? He's just putting more big words randomly on top of each other. That's not clarification. That's more obfuscation.
And another example of a valid point that can easily be taken too far. But Jameson essentially suggests that in postmodernism, affect is replaced by intensity of emotion rather than its character. Presumably,
you could make that argument for SJW inspired works like Thundercats Raw.
Wait a second.
That's just random emotional fits.
He's making the argument that, let's say a note on a piano is still the letter D, but it's replaced by the letter D, but a louder D. Like, that's not a replacement. That's just an intensity. So you have a drama, which is sad. It's now not sad, it's tragic. But it's still a negative emotion. It's still tragedy. Puccini is still Puccini. It's still a sad story. You're not replacing anything. You're just amplifying it. That is a weird way to describe something.
this would lead to a certain kind of detached melodrama, one which demonstrates an attempt to move the audience rather than a clear elaboration of the artist's own experiences.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so he's making this bizarre argument that the artist has to, or the writer or whomever, has to have experienced the thing, therefore it is good, and as such, he wouldn't resolve to melodrama. He wouldn't write space opera, for example. He wouldn't write Star Wars because that's melodramatic, or he wouldn't make a soap opera because those are unbelievable because the writer never did those things. He never flew a spaceship. He never did this. It's like, do they have to fly a spaceship for it to be believable? Does it have to be a really fast spaceship, a really big spaceship? Like, no. It could be a small one. It could be a moving, not at the speed of light, just moving through space. You could do that. Doesn't lessen the experience for me. It's how believable is that spaceship? How believable is the scene? Is the special effects there? Are the reasons why they're piloting there? Is the budget there to make the props and the costumes and the acting and everything sounds and looks good? Nothing to do with whether George Lucas was in a spaceship in his youth or something. Oy.
And well, I don't want to name the shows I'm thinking of because many people care about them, but you know what I'm talking about here.
Nope.
The
Not
aforementioned
really.
use of character archetypes certainly fits in here, as rather than setting out modernist-style characters presented in order to communicate the real richness of a human being, we're instead faced with generic types.
What? That's not modern. God.
How did we get to the character
Has
types?
this guy ever watched a classical theatrical play?
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
My God, get out of your stupid room and your stupid university that's frying your brain. Watch an original, not a modern adaptation. Watch a classic Shakespearean play.
This does sound like someone that's just become accustomed to using big words to get good grades.
Yes,
Yep,
very much so.
that's how they get trained into being activists. Their brains are fried, and then they go on frying the brains of other people.
Indicative of the new depthlessness. Lastly, of the main four traits is the breakdown of high and low culture. Which is anime? Well, the whole point is that it doesn't matter. Anime is mass culture, which used to be low culture, but it's often subcultural as well, occasionally even a counterculture. And
Wait a second. Wait, there's four kinds of culture. Sub, mass, high, and low.
That is not what that is.
Holy Jesus.
And it's all of them.
All right. Okay.
High art is always the same. Always the same high quality. Just because something is you see something everywhere doesn't mean it's suddenly not high art anymore. Or that it's suddenly low art. Or just because you see low art just in specific places that it is suddenly high art.
We can actually take that example.
Postmodern art came up for the first time. That didn't make it high art. It's just still some sort of art.
That's what the pop culture movement was. They take like Marilyn Monroe or Campbell's Soup or even the Mona Lisa and they put on a billboard, or they change it up. They switch it up here and there. It's still Marilyn Monroe. It's still the Mona Lisa. It's just a different light and color and contrast.
Yeah, but they believe that the context in which it comes up changes it. Somehow, and it does change certain perceptions of it, but it does not change the quality of the art. Like if you put replicas of Michelangelo or Rodin everywhere, that doesn't suddenly make it less art. That doesn't make it low art all of a sudden. That just makes it commonplace. But it is still high art, or the term he uses in synonymously for that, in order again to deceive.
that's the norm to which all art has trended in the past half-century plus. The avant-garde remains avant-garde, but it's linked to the masses in a way that exclusive theaters never were. I'm fully confident that 200 years from now, if 20th century media is still playable, Mobile Suit Gundam will be recognized as a pivotal piece of art, at least by a cult audience. And that's
Okay.
Whatever.
Yes.
I guess.
I agree. You summed it up perfectly.
He doesn't like bring up anything as an example. That's what bothers me, and he just uses these big words.
Yeah, but we
Doesn't
jump
get to the
from
point.
all these ideas, and then he's now saying 200 years from now, Mobile Suit Gundam will be seen as some sort of landmark moment in anime, like the Mona Lisa or like the Statue of David or something. Like, oh, okay, maybe. What's your point? Why are you mentioning this? may as well just reciting his recipe for like a fruit salad or something. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's fruit salad. Tastes good. Sounds good. Yeah.
But by 200 years, do we get like a new genre called anime postmodern? Because it's like after postmodern. We will never get an answer to that.
I wish I knew where he's going with all this, but
we still don't know is all anime postmodern.
It's like he's picking up a heavy rock and then dropping it to pick up another rock and then dropping that, and he just keeps going and going. And there's like, where?
Wasn't his only argument so far that like every thing that was made post-war is postmodern? I think like that was the only.
Yes, that was the only argument
he made for that.
There was this claim, and he used faulty logic in order to justify that.
Yeah.
Because someone else said a thing, therefore his claim is correct.
All right, Mike Testa. Back then, a sentence like that earned you a wedgie. I don't think you were actually taught this in high school. I don't think you were ever taught to talk like this. I never met a teacher that would do this, but maybe it's different nowadays. But he's just, imagine a paragraph. Again, I say this about a lot of people. Imagine a paragraph that these guys write. The first sentence has idea 1. The second sentence has idea 2, almost completely unrelated to idea A or idea 1. And then the third sentence is just its own thing, which has nothing to do with idea 1. It's just loosely connected to idea 2, and it's just off in its own world. And he just keeps going like that. And you're like, dude, can you tie this in together to a reference? Like this is loosely connected. That's loosely connected. Then this over there is loosely connected. And now we have 4 ideas, and we're lost. And I am just sitting here going, we're talking about Gundam in 200 years being a hallmark moment for something. And I'm like, what were we talking about originally?
That is not relevant to him. Because you described the process. You described the process fairly well. What he's doing, and he does that, and because in his mind, everything he states is correct and true, and there is no need to explain it. You magically know that it is true as well, and therefore he can just go to the next point that builds on the previous one. And this is how every house of cards that these people build gets built, and it is utterly solipsistic. Is that the right word here? It kind of keeps coming up in my stuff lately. So that he's trapped in his own head, and because he understands it, he assumes that everyone else does as well. That's why he doesn't need to explain anything, or doesn't feel the need to. It's just correct. So he tells you. And because it's correct, he can move on to the next point, and the next, and the next, and the next. And then he sounds smart because big words and lots of concepts all wrapped onto each other. And that sends the message. If you listen to me and agree with me, you will be considered smart as well. And that's why impressionable, especially young people, then flock to that. Because, I listen to the smart-sounding person. I am also a smart person. Therefore. It's part of how it works. It's a dazzling trick.
All right, now I'm just sort of numb, or the pain is just sort of in my forehead, and it's just, ongoing.
We're almost done, Smart. We can do it.
Yeah.
All right.
A show that was produced toys to kids like My Lovely Fiancé. The bourgeois division.
Wait, what did he say?
Bourgeois.
Let's try that again.
Osu Gundam will be recognized as a pivotal piece of art, at least by a cult audience. And that's a show that was produced to sell toys to kids like My Lovely Fiancé. The bourgeois division between high art...
My Lovely Fiancé was an anime that sells toys to kids? Is that what he said?
No. It's to sell kids to his real life fiance.
What? Wait. Let me just check.
That's fine.
He's talking about... there's
He's
no
talking. He's just this sentence is actually fine. He's saying things will be regarded as art by some that was intended to sell merchandise to people like his fiance.
Okay, that's what I
That's
heard.
all he said. That's all he said.
I thought he meant there's
Oh.
an actual anime called My Fiance, because my fiance, the anime that was known for selling. I don't know.
There probably is an anime called My Fiance because there is an anime about everything.
Wait a second. This implies this guy's getting married.
Yeah, it's a fiance is pedantic romantic. Like, it's real. You can look it up on his Twitter.
These two?
Yes.
These two? Okay, so two gay narcissists get married. Good. Then they will not abuse other people, at least within their relationship, hopefully.
Both of them stopped doing YouTube and started doing like real life stuff. So
okay, and I've read in the chat that this is also a transgender, and openly so, because a pedantic romantic admitted to be, word for word, admitted to be a transgender. He used that word, and is proud to have talked some of his friends into being transgenders as well. That is the insanity that is going on there, and I'm not surprised at all, to be honest. I'm somewhat baffled, but I'm at this point I'm not surprised anymore.
It's just so rare. Like, he just threw that in there. Like, wait, what did he say? Is that like this entire YouTube video has just been this stream of consciousness where I'm just like, where is he going? How did we get here? And now he's talking about getting married. And I'm like, why?
That's just a private thing he's bringing up to make a lighthearted a remark. Don't overinterpret it just because everything else needs to be interpreted really hard.
Yeah, but we're already 200 years in the future. We're a cult-like following of an ancient anime thing, which started a trend of robots and mecha or whatever, is going to be seen as high art or something. Whatever. It's like, what? Okay. What is the point? How did we get there? Okay. Here's 360. He's life checking by bringing up his fiance. I don't know. This is a weird video. I hate this crap. All right, we got 2 minutes left, or less than 2 minutes. Okay. Does he have Skillshare or some bullshit like that?
Let's get this shit over with.
For them, and art for the proles is no longer meaningful in a mass consumerist, literate culture. So that's all 4 traits of postmodernism, and I'd hope that you can see how they relate to.
There were 4? When was this?
What for? When? No, I don't see how they relate to anime.
Well,
I remember
Astro Boy
him
was the
saying
first
to this,
because it was
that
in the
it's
19th
last,
century.
but I don't remember the others at all.
Guys, when you have 4
sorry.
points, what you do is you say point number 1, point number 2, and you keep going. Okay, that's what you...
It also helps since you're so
True.
apt at editing stuff. Just if you talk so in this complicated manner, overly complicated, unnecessarily complicated manner, then take the time and put the crap on the screen in text so that people can keep track of it. Might just help, but maybe then just people would notice that it's all crap.
Yeah,
because they
maybe
have
just
too much time to think about it.
maybe just notice yourself that all your days are completely and utterly worthless, and you should never have made this video.
You should have never gone to university. Because it turned you into an incessant lunatic who's just raving on, and there's no difference from some hobo on the marketplace with a big sign that says the end is nigh. Because that guy is not making much more sense either. Like, look, aliens are stealing the cows. Okay, do you have evidence for that? As obviously less cows there. Yeah, because I sold them to the butcher. That's just the aliens talking through you.
Anyway,
It's like this is
Let's
So-
try and keep going.
we have almost murdered this video.
Yeah, this is the 2-minute mark, so hopefully he's got something to sell us, but I don't think so.
he's been
communist?
trying that all the
Something to
time,
sell
but
us?
I am also hoping for an ad.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, finally, I
Anime
can have
and
my
culture.
Trabant.
The general trend away from the modernist focus on high art is readily apparent in anime. And while Jameson's language may sound pejorative, it's really not as harsh as it seems. As he says, and as I believe myself, postmodernity, if we're to accept it as a conceptual framework, simply is, just as modernity was, and no return to the past is ever possible. The real question...
Well, could you have finished that sentence, please?
Was that one sentence, or what did he say?
He's just saying that post-modernity existed and does exist. That's what he says. It's a badly structured grammatically badly structured sentence. That is, it is still a correct sentence, but it is something that you rather use in prose instead of what he just did. Because all he wanted to say just now was post-modernity exists. Accept it.
This video would have been way easier if it was just like 5 seconds of the word "no" on the screen and then finish.
Yeah, but that's a Foucault book as well.
Seriously?
Read Foucault. I can. Do you?
No.
I have some
don't.
spares. I have some spares. Do you want some?
Don't read any. No, don't do that.
Well,
I'm okay with Hume. Okay. Anything else?
All right.
I mean, I might barbecue soonish, so send some over. I could use something to start a
There
fire.
you go.
Is that to me? Good firecrackers.
All right, here's Mike Testa. Anyone who is trans-trender deserves the chair. Oh, God. Degenerates like you belong on a cross. Yeah. Okay.
I don't object.
She's a good
I'll
leader.
just quietly
encounter with
stand
the
back, and
flavor.
I will just look the other way. Okay.
Oh.
It's not
Like
I'm
I don't
not-
know, like whenever like these people like tell like what they are into, I don't care like which hole you put the penis in. I don't care. I just want to watch a video about the topic. You can keep your sexual life in private, please. Just go
They
on.
have to brag to you about it. Otherwise, it's not.
Like, it's so
not fun to them.
disgusting when
They need
talk
you
about
to
it.
know. They need it. They need the audience. They need you to acknowledge them,
All right.
and they need to be performant.
Let's keep going.
Modernity, if we're to accept it as a conceptual framework, simply is, just as modernity was, and no return to the past is...
So the argument is, it's a thing. We have to accept it.
Yes, as I said.
Wow. Great revelation. That's fantastic. Let's keep going.
ever possible. The real question is how we engage with it, what we do with the new tools it offers, and how we work around those.
I barely have any idea what this framework this guy's referring to. Aside from there's being 4 points, I don't know what the 4 points are. And
He's trying to explain Evangelion.
well, I don't think his framework is going to help very much. That's not going to help at all, actually. Oh.
And he's this is a very obvious part where he conflates his ideology, pseudo philosophy with art and era and all of the stuff that he shouldn't conflate it with, and that critics of postmodernism are thrown off by when postmodern ideologues try to throw them off by, but postmodernism is just art. It's not an ideology. It's because they use the same word, and try to hide behind. They try to hide the ideology behind art. That's what he's doing here.
All right.
And the moment you try to pinpoint them on the ideology, they say, it's just art. And then they keep pushing for just the ideological crap into art.
It's taken away. Analytic categories invented for realist literature and modernist films will not map one onto anime.
Wait, what? Let me just...
They do.
Let's just try that one more time.
And how we work around those, it's taken away. Analytic categories invented for realist literature and modernist films will not map one-to-one onto anime. And that's not...
They do, though.
Why not?
This is again nonsense. This is the thing that I mentioned before, where everything's actively socially constructed and pushed onto things instead of things naturally emerging.
Well, we could argue that a lot of the ways that, I guess you could say, Marxist materialism or materialist dialectics, they want to take away the categories, which is insane. Yeah. This is something you don't do. You need categories to wrap your head around stuff and then to understand things further. And if you take that away, well, we have to start from zero again, and then we're going to make categories again. So
But also, what you said is just categorically wrong, because I can use this exact same tools I use to analyze a medieval text as I can to analyze anime when it comes to story.
Right. And to say that anime and movies are so dissimilar is like, what are you talking about? There's characters, there's visuals, there's audio, there's all sorts of dialogue, there's narration. The
process of making them is pretty much the same.
You have directors, you have artists, you have set designers, you have all kinds of things.
You make storyboards, and sometimes you have different techniques you employ. The CGI process is the same at this point.
So the idea, really shows off his stripes when you're talking about there's no categorization for things. Like, that's classic Marxist materialism or dialectical materialism, rather.
Well, also postmodernism as well.
Right, yeah, they use that too.
A bad thing if we retool our critical language to apply to the medium we're actually faced with in front of us. Ultimately, it's
don't use the actual format that you use to critique movies and books and all these other media you've known. Use this pseudo thing I've just told you about that I can't quite describe properly to properly look at anime or something. I don't even know what he's trying to ask us to do here. Yeah, let me use your new framework, which I just heard about, which you didn't properly explain to me at all.
Not particularly useful to call any specific anime postmodern. Certain series might highlight postmodernity more clearly than others, but if the word's to mean anything, and I'll leave that more theoretical judgment up to you, dear viewer, then no anime is more postmodern than any other. Nevertheless...
Wait a second. Wait a second.
So everything's pointless.
Everything's postmodern or everything's not postmodern. Is that what he came to conclusion to?
Possibly. I don't fucking know.
I hope so. So this video can end.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, please.
Okay.
As an analytical category, it has value. It should alert us to why certain trends in anime occur, helping to explain them on a structural and material basis, rather than as part of merely individual decisions by given creators. Understanding anime as postmodern can present radical new perspectives on the medium, from which we can only gain by examining.
No, they're useless usually.
That was the end?
The video just ends? what was that ending?
What? It didn't end. It stopped.
What I see, what he, I think. Lord, I had a thought laid out before, and then the more confusing drivel comes.
Okay.
As to the way he lays it out, it sounds like the postmodern is inevitable. Like the march of history, it has to go there, and therefore, under the guise of the art, the postmodern pseudo-philosophy ideology has to be.
Can we rather say
that's what I would boil it down
that
to.
Media is constantly reinventing itself and trying to come up with new stuff and doing itself, and there is no post. It's always modern. It's always going to be modern. The new thing is always going to be the new thing. And throughout history, there's always been a bunch of charlatans and idiots and pseudo-intellectuals saying shit, and they come and go like this. They come and go with the times, just like the art does.
Yes.
It's really, like, this is painful to listen to. This is like, my brain is like, where are you going?
Oh
with this?
god, it is also painful to read.
Right. And I would imagine that these morons have survived every generation. Or it's not survived. They come in every generation.
Yeah,
Okay.
they exist in every generation, and they usually pop up again. Like the hippies were pseudo intellectuals reacting to the beatniks. In my eyes, the emos were a pseudo you have to say pseudo intellectual reaction to a mix of goth and punk. And that just goes on, and you can say that the transgenders are a pseudo-intellectual reaction to gender dysphorics, to actual transsexuals with a medical condition, because it's always an imitation of the real thing that then pretends to be that thing. Well, that is what an imitation is, and then in order to justify itself, exaggerates what it does. It exaggerates the stereotypical view they have of the actual thing, which is why emos, for example, thought they had to cut their wrists all the time, because that's what you do as a goth or a punk, because that's to be part of it. When that has nothing to do with that at all, because it's just something that came up because some of the people in those subcultures had mental issues that led to self-harm. But the emos were so retarded that they thought that they have to do this in order to be part of the thing and get attention. And these exist everywhere. These are the fashionistas. Well, fashionistas is probably defined differently. They are fashion chasers. They want to be part of something so desperately they become caricatures. And they then create a whole subculture of being that caricature.
All right. Well,
we cannot even imagine what the next iteration of that in the next generation of kids will be that does this.
I have a bit of a headache. I'm trying to, just stretch out and lie down and take it easy. So I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you guys for...
I also need to sleep.
Yeah, this is too much. This has been one of the worst just because it's just horrible.
Postmodernism.
Just look at the happy Marxist faces.
Oh, God. Yeah.
That we had to get you to this thing.
They almost look like Merkel clapping.
Oh, God.
Please clap.
Anyway, guys, next time you want to send us a video, make sure it's not bullshit, okay? It doesn't help. It doesn't help anything when we look at crap. We go, yeah, that's crap. It's still crap. It's different flavors of crap. It's still useless garbage. It's not funny. It's not entertaining. It's just insane banter. And
I just want to see us in pain.
Well, they succeeded. So it's just
there's a sort of entertainment in that for some people. They're not our friends.
Anyway, guys, thank you for the recommendations. Keep the recommendations coming. Please post in the suggestions section of the Smud Talk, Smudcast section on the Discord. And we will talk to you soon, hopefully.
And please don't spam it. We've had the curators had to go through, I think, 800 videos that were just submitted by one guy.
What?
That were was all not good.
Oh.
And so if you post something interesting, quality.
All right. Well, anyway,
quality crap.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you real soon. Have yourself a great evening.